Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 1258, 1258, Tuesday, October the 6th, 2020. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, so we do have some Spygate news, some things to talk about today, so let's go ahead and do that. I guess the first thing on my list is what we heard yesterday from this U.S. attorney from Texas, John Bash, announcing that he is resigning, leaving the Department of Justice altogether, not just the investigation he's working on for Attorney General Barr, but leaving the Department of Justice altogether to accept a position in the private sector. Now he says that he made the Department of Justice aware of this about a month ago, and so a lot of people are questioning this move. I mean, first of all, it is unusual that a U.S. attorney would resign in the middle of an investigation. That's kind of strange, but it's not strange that a U.S. attorney would leave the Department of Justice after 20 years to go to the private sector, obviously. You're in there long enough that you've got your pension, and then you go work in the private sector, and you make anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million a year. So all that makes sense to me. The timing of it, I don't know. I guess it could be, you could say it's a little strange, but I guess my thoughts are right now are I'm not jumping to any major conclusions here. There's a few different possibilities that could be going on here. I've heard quite a few different things people are commenting on. Some people suggesting that the deep state got to him, left a dead horse on his pillow or something, or, death threats or whatever. My guess is this guy's prosecuted a lot of bad guys. He's probably had plenty of death threats in his life. I doubt that that's the issue. Some people suggest he doesn't want to be the guy to take down a bunch of deep staters because he doesn't want to ruin his chances of being able to, move up in the department or whatever. Well, he's not moving up in the department. He's leaving the department to go to work in the private sector. Whether or not, coming up with evidence on deep staters would hurt him in the private sector. I don't really know about that. I mean, not all law firms are left-leaning. There are law firms out there that are, do have conservative lawyers or what have you. So I don't really know that would be the case. I think it's probably exactly what it looks like. It's a little strange. But then again, this really wasn't John Bash's investigation per se. It's John Durham's investigation, Bill Barr's investigation. Bash was brought in to look at a specific area of the leaking and stuff like that. And there's also the possibility that Attorney General Barr may not have been all that happy with what he was producing, because obviously if he's got leaving the department on his mind and he's thinking about the private sector, he's getting offers out there, his mind's in a different place. It's probably not on the job he's doing at that point, and it's all going to be left behind for someone else anyway. I guess the only thing about it that's kind of, I guess the only thing about that gives me pause is not specifically this. This is just something else. It's that A.G. Barr goes on Sean Hannity, says, yes, there is going to be some developments before the election. Then he has that little exchange with Hannity where Hannity says, hey, we have to know what happened here. And Barr agrees that, yes, the American voters do need to know what occurred before they go vote. And, we have every indication at this point that that's not going to happen. And Attorney General Barr just at this point doesn't seem like, he seems kind of stubborn, not like the type of person that would just, flip or change his mind on something. He seems pretty set in his ways, that if he's made a decision, he's made a decision. But I would have to agree with a lot of other people that if he was going to come out and do anything else before the election or put out a report or anything like that, I think he would have done it by now. I don't think he would have waited until October. When you get within 30 days of an election, that's probably too close anyway. Just even if it's not politically motivated, it's just nearly impossible to defend yourself when you're accused of that when it's 30 days out to an election, especially if it's something that's fairly major, bombshell. So I guess what's interesting to me about it is that normally, we would get these regular tweets from his spokesperson, this Kerry Kupek. Barr himself had been doing a lot of speeches and getting out there a lot in the month of August and September. He had quite a few speeches he gave, and he made some fairly stern comments, strong comments about things. He didn't get specific about Spygate, but just in general about equal justice and corruption and stuff like that. There was a lot of indicators in August and September from speeches he was giving and things like that that something may be coming. But it seems like in the last 2 or 3 weeks, particularly the last 2 weeks since we first started hearing from various reporters that their sources telling them that now that they're hearing nothing is going to happen before the election. And so there's been a lot of people commenting on that. And we haven't heard from his spokesperson, Carrie Kupek. She's normally on it. Normally, when there's anything about some decision that Barr's made or something he's dealing with or anything like that, even on the Spygate stuff, normally she's pretty quick to get on social media and to debunk or comment on anything like that. But she's been totally silent. I've been checking her Twitter feed. There's really nothing there about whether or not there's a report coming, whether or not there's indictments coming. Nothing. It's been silent. She has not responded to the people who have come out and said that they're hearing that that's not going to happen. She hasn't responded either way. Attorney General Barr hasn't responded to it. Hannity, apparently, as far as we know, is not asking to come back on the show and explain what's going on. So, yeah, there's a lot of questions around it. And so this thing with John Bash, and of course, last month or about 6 weeks ago or whatever it was, month and a half ago, we had one of his senior lead investigators, the woman, who decided to leave the investigation. So a lot of people suggested that's because she was done with her part of the work. Her part of the work was wrapped up. Other people said no, it's because she don't want to be associated with what's coming or whatever. So, we really don't know. But I think it would be appropriate for either Attorney General Barr or his spokesperson, Carrie Kupek, to come out and make some statement as to where this thing is rather than leave people hanging. Because the last word from the Attorney General was that there would be developments. There would be more developments prior to the election, and that the American people did need to know what happened before they go vote again. And, it's just been crickets ever since. And again, I would seriously doubt this close to the election now that they would. And it would be a distraction at this point. And I'm not so sure that it all helps Trump. So there may be some good explanations for why things suddenly took a change. I don't know. But I get the feeling that after Trump wins re-election, whether that's known the night of the election or a week after or a month after, whatever, however that happens, and I do believe Trump's going to win, and I mainly believe he's going to win for 3 reasons. Number 1, the enthusiasm factor. Number 2, where his approval ratings are right now in comparison to other presidents who've been reelected in that 43 to 46% range. Usually if you're sitting at 43 to 46, you get reelected. And he's sitting right there around 45, something like that, pretty close to 46. He's got the enthusiasm. And, of course, we keep seeing the polling on his support from black and Hispanic voters. And we're seeing that he's got 20% support from blacks. Now, if those numbers do materialize and he ends up getting 20% of the black vote, or even 15, or even probably 10, it's probably curtains for Biden. If he gets anywhere near 50% of the Hispanic vote, it's curtains for Biden, on top of the enthusiasm, on top of the fact that he's sitting in the 45 range. So I think for all those reasons, notwithstanding that there'll be voter fraud, mail-in ballots, and all these other things, but there were 7 cases last week that were decided in Trump's favor regarding ballot harvesting, late voting, and all these sorts of things. There were 7 court decisions last week that were rendered in favor of Trump and against all these extra curricular type of voting schemes that have been put in play. And I would guess that by the time the election comes, just about all of them will have been shut down. I don't think you're going to see a lot of that going on. I think it's being battled on every front, and I don't think that that's going to turn out to be quite as is bad as a lot of people think it will be. And of course, if Trump wins in a fairly overwhelming fashion, then which means he wins Florida, he wins Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. If he wins those 5 states, and of course he will win the states he's supposed to win, and they even say Nevada may be in play, Minnesota may be in play. If either one of those, Minnesota and Nevada, come his favor, it's over. I don't know if you'll be able to harvest enough ballots to be able to overturn the election at that point. So, I'm not as worried about that maybe as a lot of other people. I am concerned, but they are fighting back on that. So it's not like it's not going unchallenged. Like I said, 7 cases last week were decided in court rulings, and rulings were reversed in favor of Trump, and so I think you'll see more on that before the election day comes. And I just think Trump's going to be reelected, and it's a gut instinct I have. But my thinking on this is that Trump's very frustrated, I know, and I think he did expect something would come out before the election. I'm sorry, he was told probably the same thing. I haven't heard him complaining about it much in the last couple of weeks, so maybe he knows something we do not know. Maybe he and Barr have had a conversation and there's an understanding between them and it's not been shared with all of us. I don't really know. We have to just watch Trump and see if he says anything. And I would like to see the DOJ spokesperson comment on exactly what happened there. But anyway, I'm not going to blow a fuse or get off on a crazy conspiracy or tangent over the resignation of John Bash. I do think I think there's a possibility there could be something else going on here. There is a possibility. I'd say I give it a 50-50 shot. Maybe it's exactly what it looks like. If he just was offered a very good paying job in the private sector, he's got his years in at the DOJ, he can get his pension, and he can move on to the private sector. And there may be some of the fact that he doesn't want to get caught up when he thinks may be coming down. All that really matters to me is that he did his work while he was in that position, and that he's dug up some important information that gets passed on to whoever. We don't know who that person is at this point. That's another thing that you would think that we would hear. Hopefully in the next couple of days they will announce who is taking over from him in that part of the investigation. So we'll just keep watching Kerry Kupak's Twitter feed, keep our eye peeled to see if Barr makes any TV appearances or makes any statements on this, other than the brief statement he made yesterday, which was just your typical, thanks John for all your work at the DOJ, blah, 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 blah. Nothing specific about his investigation, the work he was doing for Barr. So anyway, not enough for me to get bent out of shape over, but enough to raise a little skepticism about the fact that, there could be some things going on around this, other than just the fact that he wants to spend more time with his family, so to speak. So we'll keep watching, but I do expect after Trump is elected, we're going to see a different Donald Trump, mainly because he doesn't have to run for re-election again. In fact, I think if he holds on to the Senate, and especially if he wins the House, and he's got the White House, the House, and the Senate, I think if he gets all 3, I would say Katie bar the door. Because at that point, I think he'll just blow everything down. I think he'll fire Christopher No Shit Sherlock Ray. I think he'll probably can Gina Haspel. I think he'll clean house. I think he'll probably really exert some serious pressure on Barr to produce or to step aside. I think he's going to take control of things after the election, especially if he gets control of both houses of Congress. So we'll keep watching on that. And I think it's at least 50-50 or better that they'll hold on to the Senate and possibly win back the House. Trump gets reelected. I think if you see that scenario, I think, like I said, Katie bar the door, because there'll be nothing really stopping Trump, and that'll be the final thing that he will want to do before he gets started on his second-term agenda, is to finally air out everything that happened and see the perps held accountable. Remember what I've said a long time ago, I've said many, many times, put your faith in Trump. Anyone else, it's a crapshoot, including Barr and Durham. So we have another story by Sean Davis as a follow-up to the tweets that he put out last week. He's apparently digging into this very hard. He's now put out a tweet yesterday saying, and he also wrote another story in the Federalist to go along with it, saying that he has now spoken to multiple intelligence officials that are telling him that Gina Haspel is blocking to not just to protect the CIA and Brennan, but to protect herself, because we all know she was the section chief in London during 2016 and would have known everything that was going on and possibly may have even been involved in it. So this is what Sean Davis is reporting, and he says that he's hearing from his sources that she's hoping that Trump loses and this will all go away. This is according to multiple senior intelligence officials. They're telling Sean Davis that Haspel has been stonewalling by saying she cannot find documents, by also telling the White House that some documents are coming and that they're in the pipeline, but they never actually appear. He says that she'll say that the agency, the CIA, does not own those documents that are being requested, so technically she can't release them. But Sean Davis is saying that essentially what most people are looking at this is that she's flat out lying to the White House with all these excuses because she could produce all these documents right now, and she's just lying about it and not doing it. And that there are officials, and he doesn't say which officials, but there are officials who are so frustrated with Haspel that they're reaching nuclear levels. Yeah, I mean, this is something, again, as we've talked about many times on here, on this TowerGate videos, that it is impossible that Gina Haspel did not know about what was going on in London in 2016. You don't run those type of operations, whether the FBI, the CIA, or even British intelligence, that have something to do with the U.S. You don't run those sorts of things without the station chief knowing about it. Just for the pure reason that you don't want FBI and CIA or foreign intelligence agencies tripping over each other's feet, getting in each other's way. You want everyone to kind of know what's going on. You may not give all the details, but you're going to give general briefings as to the fact that you have operations going on and this type of thing. So the idea that Haspel did not know about what was going on is just not believable. So then the other part of that is, would she have been the person who would have been tasked with supervising, overseeing, or being a part in some way of those operations that were going on? And I think that that's also a very high likelihood. In fact, we have Greg Roubini. If you check his Twitter, he's been saying for the past week or so, since the last tweet last week from Sean Davis, when he put out that tweet, the Greg Roubini commented on it by saying that Haspel was managing the UK and Italy branches of the PSYOPs on the Trump campaign for Brennan and Obama, and that she's likely the one who would have been supervising or coordinating the Misfit, Downer, Halper, Dearlove group. That would have been something that she would have been handling. The Misfit, Downer, Halper, Dearlove group. This is coming from Greg Roubini. Now, Roubini, of course, you know, he wrote a book on Spygate, and it got censored on Amazon, and he claimed that Gina Haspel personally got involved to have his Spygate book censored, because he has an entire chapter in that book where he makes the case for why Haspel not only knew about everything that was going on, but was actually had been the person running these individuals, Misfit, Downer, Halper, and Dearlove, on behalf of Brennan and Obama. So that's just another angle on it that you can look at. Whether or not she was running those operations, I do not know. But certainly, if there's evidence of that, she would obviously sit on that. The fact that she's been lying to the White House, and there's now overwhelming, amount of, I don't know about evidence, but certainly overwhelming amount of opinion coming from people who are supposedly sources, saying that there's a lot of frustration that she is the one causing the logjam. And of course, we know she's a very nasty woman. We know she's a very nasty woman. We know that she was the one who was running the torture chambers in Libya. So this is a woman who can engage in serious human torture of other human beings, whether or not it's excuse me, whether or not it's justified or not. You have to be a certain type of person to be able to be involved in human torture. Even if it's justified, it's not something even a lot of people would think was justified, would not want to be the one being in charge of it. She obviously had no problem being in charge and felt no guilt whatsoever about running these torture programs, these torture prisons in Libya. God knows what was going on there. But she's a nasty woman. We know she was John Brennan's protege. She was the section chief in London in 2016. As I said, it's impossible she did not know what was going on. Whether or not she was part of that, I think it's 50-50. I'm 100% sure she knew what was going on. Whether or not she was actually running those operations for Brennan and Obama, I'd say 50-50. But hopefully, here in the next few days or so, that situation is going to be resolved. Now, here's a story that may contribute to that resolution. So we had Mark Meadows go on Fox News on yesterday morning, and he told them that Trump has requested declassification of critical documents on Spygate, and that would include the second and third Danchenko interviews, Iggy, as well as, he didn't say this, but I know Nunes mentioned it on Bartiromo, these other documents that have been mentioned that go along with the most recent declassification letter showing that the Right Reverend Clinton was cooking up the plot, and that Brennan had briefed Obama on it and sent a referral, an investigative referral to the FBI, which was in fact sent to Comey and Strzok. Now, I don't know what inspired that, whether there's just it's just building up, but I assume some of you or most of you saw Devin Nunes on Maria Bartiromo on Sunday morning, and I guess, Nunes is a very laid-back individual, very calm, relaxed, cool individual, and I would say based on what I saw there, that was pretty as close to a meltdown as you're ever going to see from Devin Nunes. He clearly got very exercised, even for a calm, laid-back dude. He was, you could see he was he's at the end of his rope. It reminds me of where I was about a year ago when I had a meltdown right here on a YouTube video. About a year ago, there's a point where you just snap. I mean, the frustration at some point builds and builds and builds, and you try to hold your composure, but at some point it's like a volcano. You explode. It happened to me right on a video. I went into a 25-minute, almost complete half-hour long tirade about a year ago when I blew a fuse, when I finally snapped. And Nunes' meltdown wasn't quite as prolific as mine with F-bombs and throwing shit as mine was. But it was pretty clear that Nunes was at meltdown mode. And it's his exasperation over everything and being stonewalled. He knows these documents are there. He has seen them. That's what he told Maria Bartiromo. I have seen these things. I know they exist. And they're not coming out. And they should be out. There's no sources or methods involved. These documents should be released. And he even went to the extent of saying that if they do not come clean and release it all, that he's now in favor of eliminating, getting rid of these spy agencies, these intelligence agencies. And that's pretty far stretched for Nunes to go that far, because even as we've been going through all of this, he's been defending the FISA court itself, saying we need the FISA court. We just need to, stop the abuse, but we need the FISA court. Now he's literally talking about when to abolish the CIA and the FBI counterintelligence and any type of intel. So that's when you hit meltdown mode. When you start making those types of comments, I'm ready to defund these agencies. That's coming from the ranking member of the House Intelligence Committees wanting to nuke the intelligence agencies. That's how frustrated he is. He's reached the end of his rope, just like I did. And Trump's probably got to be there himself. And I think that Trump probably watched Nunes on Maria Bartiromo on Sunday morning and realizes how bad it is. And Nunes didn't single out Haspel, but we all know who he's talking about. And he's also talking about Ray as well. These documents that are just now coming out, and we know there's many more, that there's no reason to be holding on to this stuff any longer. There's no reason to. We know what happened. Even Kevin McCarthy, who was also on Bartiromo that morning, said the same thing. He said, it's over. It is over. We know what happened. We know what happened. There's no use continuing to hide this stuff. Get it out. Get it all out. And I think that's where he is. I think that's where Nunes is. I think it's where a lot of Republicans are. Ron Johnson, others who have consistently been stonewalled now for over 3 years. People are hitting their breaking point. So I think that's probably what motivated Trump to tell Meadows that he was going to begin the process of declassifying all these critical documents on Spygate. And if you remember, the last time Trump attempted to do this, he was told he had to back off, because if he did it, then the Mueller team would charge him with obstruction, because releasing all this information would have obstructed their investigation. Well, now there is no Mueller investigation. There's a Durham investigation. And unless Attorney General Barr tells Trump, hey, don't declassify and release all that stuff, it'll affect Durham's investigation. But at this point, Trump has a very good comeback to him, which is, okay, well, let's make a deal. Start indicting some people and prove to me you're actually doing an investigation. You got to have to give me something. I'm tired. I'm out of faith. Nunes is out of faith. Johnson's out of faith. Grassley's out of faith. The American people have run low on faith. There is no more faith. We have no faith. It's time for action and results. And it should have happened before the election and a long time ago. So, Grinnell also had talked about there would be more documents released, but they didn't come out. We were expecting them last week. Somebody's blocking them. And whoever that is needs to be fired, in my opinion. And I do believe that right now, with the election where it is, I think there's probably a feeling maybe on the Trump campaign, maybe even Attorney General Barr, maybe they've talked about this, that right now is probably not the time to throw a unknown variable into the equation, that you can't guess how it's going to affect things. We're this far, we're this close to the election. Trump appears to be headed for victory. The investigation is moving along. Maybe he's being convinced it's best to wait till after the election, but I honestly can say that once the election is over, I don't think Trump is going to sit back and be as patient as he has been. I think he's really going to apply the heat to Barr, and I think Haspel and Ray might be gone the day after the election. I think he won't wait very long to get rid of them, and I hope he puts Rick Grinnell in as the CIA director after he cans Haspel. And I think he could put, there's some good people he could put into FBI director role. Remember, he's got 3 months in both of those positions for a temporary appointee to do a lot of good work before he has to put someone in that has to get confirmed. So there's a way to do it, and he just needs to get very aggressive. But I think that's what we will see right after the election. But I think right now, with the election being where it is, I think everyone's a little bit nervous about throwing variables into the equation that are not known variables. We're also hearing from Paul Sperry on his Twitter feed that a lot of the problems that Durham is having right now is that there's a lot of witnesses that he wants to interview who have been, through their attorneys, delaying giving their testimonies. They too are hoping to wait till after the election because they're hoping that Trump won't be around. It will be Biden, and all these investigations will go away. So a lot of these witnesses are using their lawyers to avoid speaking to Durham prior to the election. But, you know, I mean, maybe that's true, but, you know, Durham has certain authorities that he can use, and I don't know how he's going about it because we never hear anything about his investigation or how it's going, but there's certain pressure you can apply to people, you know, to get them to come in and talk. You give them the old now or never. You either come in and interview with me now as a witness, or the next time you hear from me, you'll be the target of my investigation. So there are ways to apply pressure, and I don't know if that's pressure is being applied or not. I don't have the inside skinny in there. But anyway, that looks like where we are. And as I said about a week ago, once we hit the end of September, I said, well, that's it. I still believe that's true. I would be shocked if we see anything really happening very much on the Spygate front before the election. I think everything now is focused totally on the next 30 days in the election, and I just think everybody's going to just kind of sit tight until then. I expect things will be kind of slow on this story for the next 3.5 weeks. So if there are days when I don't do videos, it's just because there really is no news to report. Like yesterday, there was just nothing really to talk about. So don't be discouraged if in fact we have some days in the next couple of weeks where I don't do a video. It just means that there's really nothing for me to tell you. And I do expect that'll be the case. I do expect things are about to slow way down on the Spygate front. But I do think that as soon as the election is over, especially if Trump wins, and especially if the Republicans take back control of the House and hold the Senate, I think as soon as the election's over, we are going to see a lot of things cracking. I do think that we could see some more declassifications and releases before the election. We will see how Trump's move to declassify and apply some pressure, if that gets Gina Haspel moving and Christopher No Shit Sherlock Ray. But I think that both of them are going to try to sit tight and resist until the very last moment. And my guess is they both know they have nothing to lose, because I think they both know that after the election, if Trump is reelected, that they're gone anyway. I mean, he already knows. Trump knows about Gina Haspel. He knows she was the station chief in London in 2016 and knows that she probably had a role to play. He knows that Christopher Wray is no good. I think that he's just waiting for the day after the election. But he's got to win first. And so my thoughts are kind of in that same place, which is right now the most important thing is winning the election. And I would focus all my energies on that. I'm not happy that things didn't come out before the election, but here we are. So now that we are here, the only thing I would say to that is once this election is over, no more excuses. Not from Barr, not from Durham, not from anybody. If I'm Trump, the day after the election, I make it perfectly clear that I've been playing the game with you people for way too long. I want some action. I want some results. I want them damn quick, or you can just go ahead and leave. I think he's going to get tough right after the election, and I think he's going to break out the bare knuckles right after the election. Let's watch and see. See you guys. Bye.